Hey guys, the button worked.
Whee!
Maybe we'll get lucky and people will show up in the chat.
Yeah.
We'll find out. Okay, let's see if the other button works.
Everyone thinks because you're a zombie, you don't know good coffee. Well, they're wrong. There's only one brew that gets my seal of approval. Deadly Grounds coffee is my guilty pleasure. The aroma is so intoxicating. It brings all of my neighbors out of the woodwork. Deadly Grounds coffee. Coffee to die for and zombie approved. It's good to get a little deadly. Use the front door! Oh, they're so disgusting.
The Dorkening and all affiliated shows are not intended for anyone under the age of 18. The following may contain discussions or scenes that have adult situations, graphic violence, nudity, strong sexual content, and graphic language. This show is intended for mature audiences only. Viewer discretion is advised.
Greetings and salutations, my wonderful freaks. I am your Uncle Necro, and I welcome you all to the Tomb of the Terrible. It's the show in which I get to lovingly assault your senses with B-movie madness.
Hey Tom Dog, we miss you. Hello, 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 my lovely peoples, and welcome back to another episode of Tomb of the Terrible, where I am your stand-in and never your replacement. Friday, we got the chaos and we got the
Run! It's like Kirk from Star Trek. Run!
Exactly. Well, gentlemen, how are you guys doing?
Run!
Not good.
Okay, that works. We want this movie. Before we start, I'm just going to say this. I went through a lot of the reviews. This is one of the few movies where I'm like, I haven't found a review that said anything like bad about the movie. You know? And that does not happen
maybe I'll
often.
change my mind and I'll talk shit about it.
I'm not asking you to do that. I'm just commenting on that is odd. Normally there's at least one review. There's one that just said, I love you. But anyway.
Well, I mean, when you have a genuinely good movie, sometimes it's hard to come up with something bad to say about it. This may be one of those times.
This is definitely one of those times.
Yeah.
So I guess without further ado, let's do further. Ron, what were your initial thoughts about the movie?
I'll tell you, since I am a child of the 80s, I did, in fact, see this movie when it first came out in 1985. However, back then, I wasn't really aware of Jim Carrey as an actor. I had no way of knowing, of course, that he would go on to do shows like In Living Color, and then he would go on to do the movies, The Dumb and Dumber, Mask, Liar, Liar, just the whole plethora of movies, and then showing his range, doing stuff like 23 and Bruce Almighty. He is a rather talented actor, I think, capable of doing a wide range of things. But you can kind of see, as this was one of his first movies, the type of character that he brings into a lot of his other movies. So I think this sort of laid the groundwork for it. So knowing who Jim Carrey is now and going back and watching it, I can see that his acting was always kind of like that because it shows through in this movie. I did a little research. He was born in 62, which would have put him about the age of 23 when he did this movie. And I was trying to decide, does he actually look older than that in this movie? Because he's supposed to be passing for 18. And that was something that a lot of the college, teenage movies did back then, was to cast older actors as younger people. That's something they've been doing forever. And I'm trying to decide, can he really pass for 18, or does he look
put a joke
older?
about it in the movie.
Well, he says he lies about his age, says that he's 21, but then later it's revealed that he's actually only 18.
Yeah.
So, I'm trying to think, if he's 23, can he still pass for 18, or does he look a little older than that? But I think it's negligible because it doesn't really matter. I think kids back then just kind of looked older because they grew up faster in that Generation X, So overall, my impression with this movie was it is a true Jim Carrey movie in that fashion of his acting, and it's quite enjoyable. I like this movie. Jumping ahead a little bit, but I like this movie. We can get to some other things.
Alrighty. What were your initial thoughts?
I liked it. It does show his signature goofy style of acting. Although there was a couple confusing parts in this movie, like the fact where she needs virgin blood, and without saying it, she's technically got 4 of them in her house at one point.
But they're all vampires.
No, I'm talking about the 3 humans.
Oh, well. But she has her sights set on the one. But anyway, continue.
That's about all I got right now. It's a good movie.
Well, Josh does bring up a good point, which I'm going to bring up a little bit later when we get to that point.
Yes. It is a fun, goofy movie that, you can definitely see a lot of him beginning to shine out, and you see the initial Jim Carrey coming through before he goes on to do the other things that brought him more into the light. But also, it's one of those movies that you generally have to. I was going to come to this later. Yes, it was his first major film. It's one of those movies that I'd have to be in the mood for, in all general. Okay, Ron, what did you like about the movie?
I like Jim Carrey, and I like Lauren Hutton's character as the countess. I thought that she did a good job with it. That, of course, does lead to one of the things I dislike, which we can get to that later. I thought that, and this is kind of weird, I thought it was on basically the same level as Killer Clowns from Outer Space, where I would like to see these two movies existing in the same universe, and the 2 guys that were flipping burgers were the 2 boys that drove the ice cream truck around in Killer Clowns from Outer Space. Maybe after Killer Clowns, they moved out to California or a different area of California, and traded in the ice cream truck for another job. And that's, of course, when they meet Jim Carrey, who drives the ice cream truck in this movie. And they're like, hey, we used to drive an ice cream truck. So they all become friends in that kind of way. But the camaraderie between those 2, Jamie and Russ, and Jim Carrey's character, is basically equivalent to the 3 from Killer Clowns from Outer Space, the 2 boys in the ice cream truck, and Mike, I think his name is. So I would have liked to have it's just me, but I sort of want to put them both together, like they exist in the same universe, and maybe there was some kind of a crossover between the two, because it had that same kind of tone to it, the general campiness and just sort of reacting to situations as they arise without actually being surprised by anything. All of a sudden you find out they're vampires, but you don't freak out, you don't get scared, you don't run away, you just sort of like, okay, this is what we're doing now. So they both have the same kind of general tone to it with the campiness, and I like that. I think that the perpetual search for sex is something that we can all sort of relate to, especially around that age, 18, early 20s, so on. And looking back on, like Russ's game now with trying to pick up the women, and he keeps using the same script over and over again. Like, who does that? Do you have game or do you not have game? So just the simple campiness of them putting something like that in there, I thought was pretty good. Mostly, I thought that the movie held together pretty well, and there were some fun moments in it. Just the general camaraderie and the dialogue, like with the flipping burgers, like that's burnt, and all of that. The simple fact that he drives an ice cream truck instead of a sensible, car. They never really explain whether or not it's actually his job or if he just drives an ice cream truck, because he never actually sells any ice cream.
No.
It's like the two kids come up on the bikes and they ask for the ice cream, and then he turns around and scares them off in his vampire form. He never actually sells any ice cream.
True.
So the chase scene was sort of out of Scooby-Doo a little bit when they're running around the house, and the whole chase scene with the vampires. That was amusing. That's a little camaraderie right there. So yeah, I mean, I thought there was a lot of just fun moments in this movie, which make it it would make an entertaining date movie, because it's not something that you really have to think about a lot, and it's not real philosophical or anything like that. So it's just something that you can sort of enjoy, or you can put it on in the background while you're making out with your girl in the theater. It's that kind of movie. So there are some good things about it like that, which I enjoyed.
I lucked out in 10th grade and didn't have to look any further.
He must have had game back then.
He was this goofy guy
Yeah.
sitting me on the floor. It worked out somehow. So
It's all in the height.
yeah, you was taller than I was in the whole school. But anyway, what did you like about the movie?
Oddly enough, I liked the last half of the movie a lot the most, because that's where to be honest, that's where most of the comedy for the movie actually was, in that last section, especially with the chasing around the house. And one of the parts I probably thought was funniest was the fact where they're sitting there tearing holes in the floor, busting through walls, and then all of a sudden they get to the last room. He punches a hole in the wall, in the door, and she's like, "Do you ever use the doorknob? Everything y'all destroy, I have to pay to replace."
See, I like that because it brings some kind of practicality into the movie. It's like normal everyday things that you wouldn't normally think about vampires would have to do. The arduous everyday tasks, like,
It's
sure,
like,
she's
"Stop
rich, but
breaking my
she's
shit."
supporting this entire household, and she has to do all the maintenance work and everything. And you have to be careful about who you trust to come into your house to fix the doors. So, so that's like a small detail that not a lot of people would really think about. But when you delve into it, it's the kind of thing that makes the movie.
Yeah.
Dude, yeah, and the coolest thing is Charlene Harris actually thought about that. Having people come in, getting somebody during the day to make sure they did the job. Yeah, That is something that very few people I've either watched or read about has thought about that.
It's also the kind of thing as a writer you have to think about, because
Yeah.
if your audience is going to question it, you as the writer have to have an answer for it. And you don't necessarily have to answer it within the course of the dialogue, but you can probably display it on screen, in the background, which answers the question, but it's never truly, directed.
Oh yeah. Did you have anything else to add?
That's all I got at the moment.
I think one of my favorite scenes was the teacher walks in and he's looking at a piece of the frog
The frog heads.
and telling her, she asked him, "What are you doing here?" "I'm dissecting this frog." "You're not even in this class."
Wait, what?
And that's when it dawns on him, like, oh yeah, I'm not in this class. Then sort of walks out.
It's like, well, shit.
I love the little things like that, and I think one of my other favorite scenes was the the character he played in the movie and what he did. But yeah, it was just a really fun movie to watch, and but
Here's
what? Yes.
sorry. Here's something I find interesting about his transition in this movie, that he keeps claiming it's not a costume, or I'm not a vampire. I'm not a vampire. I'm not a vampire, even though he's slowly turning into a vampire, because his image overall keeps changing to what we consider the stereotypical vampire look. And he starts looking more like Bela Lugosi, as Dracula, and this is where it makes me wonder, because, in our subconscious minds, that's the typical image that we have of the vampire. So as he's turning, it's like his subconscious mind is driving him to take on that image, even though he is unaware of the fact that he himself is actually turning into a vampire.
Yes. Oh, I was able to fully form the rest of the sentence. Cleveland Little comes in and he's sitting there putting her makeup on through the frame of where the mirror would be and telling her how gorgeous she was. I really liked that scene. I thought that was kind of cool to really bring home the vampire-ness. And for those who don't know, he was in Blazing Saddles.
Yes, Sheriff Bart.
Yep. Why I'm like, ooh, you're just really cool on a lot of fronts. But anyway, Ron, what did you not like about this movie?
The one thing that I didn't really like about this movie is that they didn't really set up any rules for the vampires. Now, when you take like Anne Rice's vampires with Interview with the Vampire, Vampire Lestat, Louis, and all of that, she has very defined rules for what the vampires can do and what the vampires cannot do. They can't go out in sunlight. And she states, crosses don't bother them. They like garlic, and so on. They do have some preternatural abilities with some superhuman strength. They are able to move very quickly. They are able to not necessarily fly, but sort of float. And they can use that and their super speed to their advantage to make it look like they're flying. But they can't change into rats or wolves or anything like that. They can't turn into mist or bats or whatnot. So But there are no clearly defined rules in this movie for the vampires. They're not shown to be, fast. They don't move very quickly. They don't appear superhumanly strong. They're not resilient to pain because she punches that vampire in the face and he goes down pretty quick.
Yeah.
And they all react to the pain.
There's only one
Uh,
defined rule.
They can't go out in the sunlight.
Having to bite him 3 times.
Yeah, and that's never really explained why that rule is. Who came up with that rule? Why do they have to live by it? Why is that a thing? Because it doesn't match any other vampire lore that we know of. Usually it's just a transfusion of blood. The vampire bites the person, drink some of their blood, and then make them feed back on that blood so that it's mixed in with the vampire blood, and it creates a circuit. So that person eventually becomes a vampire. Now, like in Interview with the Vampire Lestat, if they drink the person's blood, but they don't reciprocate, and that person doesn't get the chance to drink the vampiric blood, that person dies.
Yeah.
They don't turn into a vampire. They just die from blood loss. So, but that's never really explained. Why does she have to bite him 3 times? And it all goes to, it's for her to keep her youthful looks. I would like a little bit more background story on these vampires to really understand what is their vampiric lore. She's supposedly around 400 years old. This movie's 1985, so that would have put her alive back in 1585. Where is she from that she's a countess of? Because she has no accent. And I would think if she's from a different country that she was a countess in, that she would never really truly lose that accent, regardless of how long she's been living in modern day society in America. Keep in mind, the United States wasn't even settled at that time. It's still all native country, and we barely even had any settlers coming around that time. It didn't actually get settled until the late 1600s. So why does she not have an accent? Now, all of her minions, the other vampires that are living in her house, it's never specifically stated, but I assumed that they were all virgins that she converted before. And that's the reason why they're all vampires under her. So now that she's lost that virgin and she, grew old really quickly, what happens to them? It's never explicitly explained. What happens to them if she loses her abilities? Do they still stay loyal to her? Or are they set free? Do they go out their own way? Do they have to keep feeding themselves? Are they bound by the same rule that they have to find a virgin and bite them 3 times? None of this is ever really explained. So that's my big issue with this movie, is they just didn't go into the vampire lore enough. But if it's a date night movie and you're going to be sucking face with your date anyway in the theater, you probably don't really care about the lore because you're only half paying attention to the movie. So that's why it's good that we do shows like this. We can really delve into that and ask these questions that nobody else is asking.
True. And yeah, I don't think that's what I've done either time I've watched this movie. Dude, that is a question I've forgotten to ask the last few times. Have you seen this movie before?
Well, I answered that at the beginning.
Yeah, that was answered at the beginning. But yeah, either way, what did you not like about the movie?
Probably the main part I didn't like about the movie is what I had said earlier, where she's talking about she's never going to find another virgin and near the end, but she had 4 of them in her house right
Mhm.
then.
Yeah, because it was already established that Jamie and Russ and Lauren were all virgins.
Yeah. So she could have easily got her third fix of virgin blood from any one of the other three.
Yeah, you know why?
Because
Why does
the
she have
only
to? Does it have to come from one person, or
Yeah,
why can't you
Yeah,
take
the
all
one
three
thing
bites
I
from
was
different
wondering.
people?
the only thing she said is she has to drink virgin blood 3 times before Halloween, before the end of Halloween night.
Yeah, why Halloween? Why is that?
Yeah.
Why is that
Why
the cutoff?
Halloween, and why does it have to be the same person? It
I mean, it would
that
seem to me if she's 400 years old and this is the rule that she's lived by, she would have learned to plan in advance and maybe have a couple virgins on standby and maybe keep them enthralled using that little hypnotizing ability that she has. Keep them enthralled and kept in captivity so that she can just go down and feed on them whenever. Why does it
Yeah.
have to be so close to Halloween? Why can't she do it like right at the beginning of the year so she already gets those 3 bites out of the way?
yeah.
It's plot driven. That is the whole thing. This is a plot armor movie.
It's all questions though.
Yeah.
Yeah, this movie had nothing but questions because we all have like vampire lore from Buffy. We have vampire lore from the Queen herself, Anne Rice, and Charlene Harris, and all the other vampiric things we've read.
Although speaking of vampires, I was scrolling through TikTok today, and it made me want to watch another older movie, Lost Boys.
Yeah, we have
It
that.
was I found a missing persons poster with the each of the Lost Boys on it.
And what happened to Jamie and Russ in this movie? Because they come across the 2 female vampires and Jamie's throwing his game and, then it cuts away from them. So do they become vampires?
I don't know.
Or is it like the whole clown incident in Killer Clowns?
Yeah, exactly.
Whole lot of I have really no idea.
Probably more closer to the Killer Clown incident.
Okay. I can't add anything more than what they said because I have a lot of the same questions. Like, did they just have happy fun time with the vampires at the end? Did she change them? Well, did they change the 2? I have no idea. But either way, let's roll that beautiful Faye footage and then come back and rate the movie.
Right.
Greetings and Shabibans. We are the Retro Reductibus Cephala Podcast, a long-form bi-weekly show that celebrates all the things that made growing up awesome.
Yeah, that sounds good, but I don't know what all those words mean.
I think what Parasite seems trying to say is that on Retro Red Octopus, we explore a range of retro goodness, from toys, video games, and movies, to cartoons, and even snacks and school lunches.
Oh.
And we do it all with a positive spin, a slew of killer guests, and some very adult language.
And you know what else is cool?
No.
This crazy show is part of the Door King Podcast Network with new episodes every Tentacle Tuesday.
What's that?
And if waiting 2 weeks for a new episode gives you a sad, know that we drop bonus episodes all the time, like the off-format Crow's Nest and an interview series we call The Brick.
You can listen to Retro Red Octopus on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or any app that's cool enough to carry the only show that celebrates all the things that make growing up awesome.
Hello, 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 my lovelies. Welcome back to this insanity. Meow. How
Another
many-
thing.
And another thing.
that I
One
was thinking
more
about during the
thing.
break. So Clavon Little's character is the chauffeur, the butler, or her personal assistant, whatever the hell he is.
All of
he
the above.
Yeah, he openly confesses that he's gay and that he's actually declared that he was gay, for several centuries. And I'm thinking, how did that go down back in your original time, dude? Because homosexuality was not a thing that was widely accepted back then. So maybe that's why you became a vampire. I don't know, but I don't know. I would like more of his backstory on how it is to be a gay vampire, so does the virgin rule work for him as well? I mean, does he have to find like male virgins also, or what?
No. At least LD Wasor gives us clear, defined ideas of how it works. Not with this guy.
Yeah, this is my problem is when you ask me to start analyzing movies and I start questioning things like this.
You are very good at analyzing things. And yeah. Okay. Do you have any other thoughts before I continue with the next part?
You can't let the overanalyzation of a movie detract you from enjoying that movie.
I agree. That's why I didn't analyze it. It's one of those movies where there was so many things that didn't fully make sense that I'm just like, nah, I'm just gonna watch the movie. It's like Killer Tongue from Outer Space. So many things in that did not make sense, but it's still one of my favorite movies. But anyway, back to this one.
All right.
How many things would you give it? And would you recommend?
How many fangs would I give it? Well, we'll go with 6 fangs, 1 for each bite, or 2 for each bite. Yeah. Okay. So 6 fangs, 2 for each bite. And yeah, I mean, I'd recommend this movie, especially for people that like Jim Carrey. And as this being one of his earliest movies, you kind of see that his acting style has always been there, and he's very good at riffing. Like with the whole scene in the department store when his girlfriend is trying to help the customer and he's acting an idiot in the background. I don't think any of that was actually scripted. It was probably him just improvising, trying to make her laugh and break character. I don't know that for a fact because I didn't see any particular trivia on it, but it seems like something that Jim Carrey as an actor would do, and it's precisely the kind of thing that kind of energy that he brings into a lot of his other movies as his particular acting style. So, if you like Jim Carrey, if you're a fan of Jim Carrey, and this is one of his earliest movies, then yeah, I would totally recommend this movie.
Okay. How many things would you give it? And would you recommend?
I will have to give it I'd probably have to give it about 7, deducting 3 things for the whole for the plot hole incidents. But yeah, I'd recommend it. I recommend most Jim Carrey things.
Ooh. Now that gives me one more question I want to ask both of you before we move on. What is y'all's favorite Jim Carrey movie?
Ooh.
Oof. That's a tough one. That's a real tough one. I've seen a lot of Jim Carrey movies. I really like, if you're talking about like his funny side, I kind of like Bruce Almighty because it's a little bit of his comedic self and some of his serious self mixed in. I think he does kind of the same thing in the Truman Show. There's a lot of funny moments that he has, but he also shows that he can be serious when he needs to be. But then you combine that with something like 23, which is seriously dramatic, and I don't think that there's, he does a lot of funny bits in that movie. And also Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, which is also a pretty serious movie as well. And there's not a lot of comedic elements in that one. So that's really kind of hard to say because he can run the gamut, especially when you think about when he was in Living Color and he was doing bits like when he was parodying Vanilla Ice and Snow. And I'm sure everybody's seen those videos. And that's like classic Jim Carrey. And as he got older and started taking on more, I would say, mature roles, and you start seeing like a different side of him, then it sort of really makes you appreciate just the acting skill that this man has. So to try to pick one favorite movie would be extremely difficult because there's so many different sides of him. It would make it really hard to pick one.
Mm-hmm. I can narrow it down to 3. I just was able to get the special edition of The Majestic. I love 23 to the point of I actually had a kid on the 23rd day of April. That was a weird thing to find out. I had an obsession with when I was a teenager, and I just found random 23 things. And then, of course, Liar Liar.
Liar Liar, I think, was kind of like the pinnacle of his comedic timing when he was like his absolute peak for doing comedy, because that movie stands out in his repertoire as just like the most amazing riffing I think he's ever done in a movie.
Yes.
Mine would probably have to be kind of a tie between Liar Liar and The Mask.
Yeah. The Mask, had the ability to be very dark movie, kind of in the same vein as like Tim Burton doing Batman movie. It sort of could have been done like that, but because it was Jim Carrey, it sort of turned something that could have been extremely dark into a bit more of the comedy realm, and just that mesh of putting them together, just it makes that movie stand out well too.
Yeah, I did not care for the second one. I really didn't.
Okay. I'll give it 8 things. Generally because it's better if you don't think about it and just watch it because it's a fun movie.
Ace
Yes.
Ventura, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Okay. Random trivia I found. This I thought was hilarious. By the time the film was released, writer Jeffrey House had blown through his initial earnings and had to take a job as a video store clerk. One day, an oblivious customer remarked of the film, "Whoever wrote this shouldn't be working in Hollywood," and an incensed House retorted, "You got your wish." The Countess was originally written for Cassandra Peterson. I can see that. Everybody loves Elvira. But then
But she
again,
would have brought that Elvira energy to it, and I think putting that up against Jim Carrey's energy in the movie, they might have clashed because you've got two dominant personalities with the essential same kind of sassiness that I don't know if they would have worked well together.
when Robin punches the vampire in that one scene, she actually did hit him so hard that
Knocked out a
she
tooth.
knocked out his fake teeth.
One piece of trivia that I saw was that Michael J. Fox was originally considered for the role that Jim Carrey played. And I started thinking about that, and I thought, no, because Michael J. Fox, I think his energy, his vibe was all wrong for this movie. It would have been a completely different tone because he doesn't have those same kind of comedic riff abilities that Carrey has. So it made me start wondering, if it hadn't been Carrey and it's not Michael J. Fox, who else would have been good for this role? And the only other person I could think of that I think would have been able to carry it was, what's his name? John, Gross Point Blank, One Crazy Summer, Better Off Dead. What's his last name?
I know who you're talking about, but I can't. It's escaping me as well.
Acts with his sister a lot. Come on now.
John Cusack?
John Cusack. God, why couldn't I think of his name? That's terrible. John Cusack. When you look at some of John Cusack's later movies, like War Inc. or Gross Point Blank, he's more of a serious sort of action figure type role. And in some movies, he's even played the villain, which I find interesting because he's always been sort of the happy-go-lucky, bumbling kind of guy. When you look at like Better Off Dead and One Crazy Summer, stuff like that. So I think that he kind of could bring that same energy of being able to do the comedic riffing in the background and also being serious and possibly bringing more gravitas to the role as well. So outside of Jim Carrey, I think John Cusack probably would have been my other choice.
Yeah, I can see that. The flaming red lip-shaped telephones used in the Dial-A-Date pickup bar scene was the Hot Lips from Telequest. The company specialized in designer and novelty telephone sets for the deregulated telephony market. They also have Mickey Mouse phone and baseball phones.
Yeah, I think those red lips phones actually came out on the market for a while back in the 80s. I mean, you just buy them at the store.
Oh yeah, it was. They were available. It's just now to think about that after what we carry our phones in our pocket now. It's no longer stylish to have something that huge. Or the
Yeah.
clear see-through ones that we used to have in some places. Let's see. Anything else fun? When Mark, Russ, and Jamie are driving to Hollywood, a theater marquee can be seen showing Fright Night, another vampire movie released in August of 1985 and 3 months before the film's release in November of 1985. And Karen,
It's right at the beginning of the movie.
yep,
Yep.
Karen Hopkins was only like 27.
Yeah, the one that played Robin. She was actually 4 years older than Jim Carrey was in this movie, even though they're supposed to be the same age.
Oh yeah. But anyway, as I was saying earlier, normally we have like funny ones or ones that are like fun to say about how bad the movie was. And I'm just like all of them they either talk about him being a treat, early Jim Carrey movie made for laughs. It's I can't pick just a one to read because all of them were just all saying praises about this movie. So this is probably going to be like the first time we skip it because there's no bad reviews like we normally would do on this show.
Didn't Carrey's what is it, BNS on movies or something like that? Didn't he write a review of it? I thought I saw one posted.
Yeah.
Carrey posted on the Facebook page.
We can definitely do that one. I have to. Okay,
Yeah.
there's the tomb.
Let's read his because he always has a way with words. His reviews are always spot on.
And if you're wondering where I put the link for that one, please come join the group and see what what I have posted there and join in the discussion. Where did you open?
Over there.
Over there. That's the problem. I have way too many tabs open. Okay.
Tabs.
Thanks to my friend Adam Ciso or Seco. I am messing up that name. Please forgive me for suggesting this movie. It's one of Becca's favorites. So she was really happy that we watched it. She loved the soundtrack and knows pretty much every word. Interestingly enough, the role of the Countess was written for Elvira, and the screenwriter Jeffrey House wanted Michael J. Fox to star in the film. But executive producer Samuel Goldwyn Jr. was convinced that Fox wasn't a big screen star. Whoops.
Yeah, considering that Back to the Future came out around that same time.
Oh yeah, and it's not like we all don't have a copy of that because I know I do. I have all three. The eternally youthful Countess Lauren Hutton is immortal but must consume the blood of a virgin 3 times every Halloween to stay that way. That's getting harder and harder to do these days. Virgins are in short supply. Mark Kendall might look 30. Jim Carrey, in his first major role, was 23 at the time of its release, but is your normal horny teenager. However, his girlfriend Robin won't put out, so he and his friends Jamie and Russ decide to go to a Hollywood singles bar. That's where Mark's seduced by the Countess and bitten for the first time. Now she has him under her spell, and it's up to Robin and his friends to bring him back to the side of the living. The Countess has an entire army of vampires, one of whom is Camilla Moore, one half of the Terry and Tina twins, Friday the 13th final chapter, and her assistant Sebastian to help her in her aim. Sebastian is played by Cleveland Little, who is in Vanishing Point, but may be best known as playing Sheriff Bart in Blazing Saddles. He was selected for the role after Warner Brothers rejected Richard Pryor, who co-wrote the script, due to his reputation of drug use and unpredictable behavior. He'd also go on to star with Richard Pryor in Grease Lightning. Also, if you need a good trivia question to stump people, he's the brother of the singer Deetta Little, who sang the vocals with Nelson Pigford on Gonna Fly Now, the theme from Rocky. Megan Mullally also shows up in a small role years before she's better known on TV's Will and Grace. I just love the alternate titles this movie has in other countries. Seduction Has Teeth, Vampires Forever, Virgin Boy Wanted, I Love a Vampire, Just One Bitten, and Kiss Princess. That last one's kind of weird. It's strange watching this movie in 2019, but any movie over 30 years old really needs to be considered as of the time it was made. For example, the shower scene in where Jamie and Russ try to find out of Mark has a bite on his thigh.
If Mark is Mark.
Yeah. And are confronted by homophobic slurs may seem pretty rough today. And it is. However, the scene was based on a personal experience of co-writer Jeffrey House. And Sebastian's character is very much how gay men were perceived at the time. Luckily, we've grown. Well, I hope we have since then. You can watch this on Amazon Prime with a link. So, yes, I can definitely tell you anything.
He pretty much touched on a lot of the stuff that we already touched on. He just added a bit more trivia in there.
Yeah.
I don't really see Richard Pryor playing a gay guy, but Cleveland Little pulled it off pretty well.
Yeah. Richard Pryor's good in comedies, but I don't think he would have fit that role at all.
No, I don't think so.
Not the slightest.
I think.
And nobody mentioned the dance scene.
No.
The very sporadic impromptu dance scene that was totally choreographed.
Yeah.
I may sort of kind of have a pet peeve about stuff like that, you know, when it's a dance scene that just spontaneously occurs, but all of the moves and everything in it is all choreographed. I don't think people are just naturally that good of dancers that they can pull off a whole, dance like that. That's not choreographed, a dance that looks choreographed that really isn't. I don't think that's possible. But
I've only seen it a couple of times where anime fans who love the same anime that have a really cool dance scene in the beginning, and they decide collectively to dance to the theme song one of them plays on their phone. They've never met, but they have done it so often themselves, they get it all right at once.
Well, they've spent a great deal of time, watching that scene over and over again so that they can teach themselves to dance. And then it turns out that there are other people that have done the same thing. So when they all get together and they realize that they all know the dance, it can be spontaneous at that point. Then it's not really choreographed because everybody knows the same dance.
Yeah.
It's like Thriller. You see all these videos, like, let's say the prisoners in the prison that are all doing the Thriller dance.
Yeah.
They spent hours and hours practicing that Thriller dance over and over again so that they can do that whole video. because the choreography was done a long time ago by somebody else. You know, but then when you get them all together, because they all know the dance, you can do it without any choreography, just because you already know that dance. It's not really the same thing. This was basically just like a dance battle that spontaneously erupts, but
it's very choreographed.
It's very choreographed. And I can't imagine that a dance battle would be that synchronized, that choreographed. So to me, it's kind of like a little pet peeve. Now you take a movie like Breakin', the breakdance movie. Okay, everybody that dances in that movie was an experienced breakdancer. They were on a breakdance crew, so they would practice their own choreography. So when a battle would break out, they all had their own moves, you know. So it's very different. It's not choreographed. It's them improving their own breakdancing moves. That's fine. But when you have a dance battle that's supposed to be spontaneous and it looks completely choreographed, that sort of throws off the whole, yeah, it's cool choreography. It's a really cool dance scene, but I just don't see dance scenes happening that way.
Yeah.
True. Unfortunately, but when you're in a movie, it makes sense. Okay, guys, let's find out what we're doing when we come back.
Round and round we go.
We might have to do it a couple of times because I can't adjust this one because it's not mine.
It says,
well, no, we won't.
Killer Clowns, Attack of the Killer Donuts. Okay, all right.
Okay.
Attack of the Killer Donuts.
Okay, let's find out if that's to be or not to be. It is to be.
Yay.
Donuts with teeth.
Yeah.
Yep.
Not what I expected. Okay, let me put it in the feed. So
when are we going to get Rockula on the wheel?
Later. We're going to finish this wheel first. And then we're going to...
We could be years into the show before we ever get to Rockula.
Yeah, but we have quite a lengthy thing. Quite a lengthy list from UncleNecRo to get through.
I want to sneak it in there someday. I want to sneak in Rockula.
Yes, we will. It's
worthy of the wheel.
Yeah.
Alrighty. There we go.
Now I won't watch Blazing Saddles again.
I always want to watch Blazing Saddles.
That is a movie you could not make today.
No.
At all. It's a great movie.
Yep.
But they'd be crucified today.
But anyway, guys, where do you want to be?
Hey, I have an author website now. It is www.rongillespiejr.com. And it is still unfinished, but it's there. And of course, you can also find me on my author Facebook page, Ronald W Gillespie Jr. -author. And you can reach out through that page and probably talk to Friday over there as, you know, the main Owlite and fake core cosplayer. So yeah, you can find me there. And we don't know whether or not TikTok is still going to be around. So I don't even know if it's worth pointing you in the direction of my TikTok. So
yeah, go see his TikTok. Go see his Facebook page. Go see his books.
Go see my books. Go buy my books. Spend all of your money buying all of the books that I have stories in. So, you know, buy me a cup of coffee. Read. This message is brought to you by Pro Literacy.
Woohoo! He's in a book now. his photos get published. So onwards adventures,
I do
realistic,
pictures.
realistic. Anyway, yes. Where do you want people to find you?
Find her.
Yeah, I have his links in places. And
If I'm saying things, she did it.
Like my dad. You don't know shit. You don't
I
do
plead
social
the
media.
fifth of Jack.
Yep. You played it and I'll drink it.
Yeah.
exactly. Well, I am taking a short hiatus from various pages and shows after Wednesday until we can get fully moved. And then I will continue doing all the pages, including mine. You can find me here at the Owl Light, as always. Fake Corpse, Friday with the Library in the Blue Box, and Corpse Garden, and my author page, Jennifer Elliott. If you would like to read my ghost stories and my fairy stories, please. Or if you'd like to read my weird poetry, please go right ahead. And I hope you guys all have a wonderful night. Thank you guys for being here. Hey, we did it. We made it to an hour.
Yay.
So
Success.
yes, that's why I added random extra things. Anyways, as always, please go check out BNS About Movies. Please read our stuff, watch our shows, and come back next time. Thank you guys for being here.
Don't forget to tip the crackhead.
Or, just send me your money.
On that